You can get better at trading in Dynasty, and we're going to tell you how in this video. All the principles to making sound Dynasty trades and not ruining your team. But if you listen to this video, you will come out the other end a better Dynasty trader and more understanding of what it takes to actually make Dynasty trades that win you championships. Let's start with this. Knowing your league is the most important part of trading in Dynasty, okay? You know, we give you advice, buy this player, sell them for this player, buy them for this player, etc. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's not happening in my league. That's totally understandable. Your league is your league. My league is my league. Every league is different. When we give out advice, it's typically for the median Dynasty league. You may play in a super duper sharp league. You may play in a league that watches somebody else's channel and they have completely different opinions and values. You may play in a league with all domain people and they all have the same opinions as us on players. The fact of the matter is, knowing your league is the most important step to making good Dynasty trades. Because the more that you know your league mates' tendencies and their habits and also their downfalls, the better you're going to be. Know how many trades occur in your league. How active are your league mates? You may not be able in your league to play the market effectively. We talk about this all the time. Buy low, sell high, buy to sell to buy. A lot of times those things aren't possible in all leagues. But a lot of people have said, a lot of times the domain says, hey, you should sell this player now and buy them back later. And that doesn't actually happen. I got news flash. That does happen. And here's why it happens. Because there are essentially 2 seasons of Dynasty Fantasy Football here, okay? And if you think about trading in these 2 different seasons, you'll realize that there's a lot of flexibility with what you can do in your roster, okay? Because fact of the matter is, people who make trades during the NFL season have a completely different mindset, have a completely different motivation than they are when they're trading in the offseason. So when you're looking at Dynasty trading, you should look at it in 2 periods. In-season trading and off-season trading. You can break it up into little smaller categories as well. Pre-NFL draft, post-NFL draft, pre-season, right? Training camp. There are all these little categories of timelines for trading in Dynasty, but you have to look at it like this. The reason that people are willing to allow you to play the market in your league is because there are 2 different seasons. Now, again, depending on how active your league is, you might not get a ton of trades done in the offseason. But people trade completely differently in season versus out of season, and that's my point. Teams have different goals. Narratives change in season versus out of season. Somebody asked for an example. Oh, domain. When can you ever sell a player and then buy them back? Number 1, we've done this countless of times on our own Dynasty teams. Number 2, we answer questions about this a ton. And you can tell us in the comments when you've done that. But number 3, here's a perfect example. In the offseason, we were pretty high on selling away Colston Loveland because we knew that Colston Loveland was not going to produce this year. Colston Loveland was viewed as a contending piece for a Dynasty team by a lot of the Dynasty community who thought he was going to produce right away. If you sold Colston Loveland in the offseason to somebody who was going to start him in their tight end spot, you could easily buy back Colston Loveland from that team right now if that team is still contending, because you could give that team a contending piece, and Colston Loveland is not helping them win a championship. Okay? We've done this with A.J. Brown every year for the past 3 years. A.J. Brown always loses value at the end of the season into the early offseason, okay? So a lot of times he becomes a sell in season. Fact of the matter is, though, when you're sitting in March and playing Dynasty, A.J. Brown is not hard to grab. He's not hard to get back on your roster. Nobody's going to be protective of A.J. Brown on their roster. So those are examples of playing the market, so to say, where you actually sell and then buy somebody back. It does happen. Don't tell us it doesn't, because we see it all the time. Now, again, in an active Dynasty league, buying low and selling high is possible, and selling high and buying low is possible. There are tons of examples of this. But what if you don't play in an active Dynasty league? You're going to have to approach this trade strategy. You might not be able to play the market. And this is one where we haven't given a ton of advice. If you are in a Dynasty league that doesn't trade a lot, how do you approach this? This is a Dynasty league where trades only happen occasionally. This is a Dynasty league where people don't trade in the offseason, where you can't buy a player to sell them and you can't sell a player to buy them. That happens. So what's my advice to you if you play in a Dynasty league where nobody trades and you can't play the market enough? I would get in a new league. That's honestly my advice for you. I know that's not super constructive, but the fact of the matter is people ask us for advice on this all the time. Hey, my league's inactive. What do I do? Well, you can't make your league mates be active. Like, you can't force them to be on Sleeper. You can't force them to be passionate about the game. I would get in an active Dynasty league. We have leagues that we start in the offseason. I think there were dozens of domain leagues started over on our Discord. All of them are doing very well. Not every league is your league, though. And so, again, just because you play in an inactive Dynasty league and you can't get this trade or this move done or this type of market play done, doesn't mean that other people can't. Because, again, a huge majority of our audience who plays in very active leagues, they do get this stuff done.
Yeah, and I will know, like, a lot of people will remain in those non-active leagues because maybe you're playing with your friends, or maybe, you know, it's more of a casual league anyways where you're playing with work friends or something like that. That's totally understandable. And I would say you do have one advantage to your league mates in a non-active league where not a ton of trades are made. And that is, if you're the most active person in that league, that means you have a gauge on market value more than anybody else does in that league. Likely more often than not, there is a direct correlation between low league activity and inaccurate valuation of players. So generally, even though less trades happen in those leagues, when trades do happen, when they do go down, you generally see some big value wins for one side or the other. Mm-hmm. And that's where you can take advantage. Like, you can be patient with your league. Maybe you only get a few trades done every season instead of like 10. And that's totally okay if you are on the receiving end of some big value wins when you do get a chance to negotiate with one of your friends in that league or something. So that would be my recommendation. If you're going to stick with an inactive league for whatever reason, like that would be the reason why you would. And that's the reason that we have in a couple where it's like, I mean, gosh, I'm still in this league because every time I do get a trade, even though it's really rare, I'm getting the biggest possible value when I could ever dream of, and I can't pull that off in more competitive leagues.
Yeah, and I would say this, if you're going to continue to play in an inactive league, like Nathan mentioned, then I think you have to adjust your strategy with marketplace as well. You can't play the market in inactive leagues because you can't buy low to sell high. Don't buy. So essentially, don't buy a seller, don't buy a player you don't believe in. Don't sell a player you do believe in within the span of about 2.5 years.
You have to pinpoint true market value.
It's a lot harder.
You have to pinpoint gaps between true market value and your league valuation of individual players.
And so a lot of times, again, we're giving advice for active dynasty leagues because most dynasty leagues are active. But if you're inactive, you have to take our advice and you have to look at it and say, okay, these guys are saying in the next 2 years that this is like a very good long-term value play. Those are the value plays you're making because you might not get all the trades done that you need to.
Yep.
And so you just have to adjust for your league. Of course, we can't hold your hand and tell you for each individual specific league that every single one of you plays in, this is how you should do your trade strategy. But again, generally for more active leagues, you're allowed to have more flexibility and you're allowed to play the market. And in more inactive leagues, you aren't allowed to. And so that's something I wanted to mention. Now, this is an interesting concept that we need to talk about, especially in season for trading, because there's a ton of misconception around trading in season. This can be an open discussion. Just chime in and interrupt me anytime you want. Because we're going to talk about the Brock Bowers example. And I'm not afraid to say that I absolutely stand by what we said about Brock Bowers, even though dozens of you in the comments, were personally insulting us over a Dynasty take, which, whatever, do it, that's fine, we don't care. The problem is, I think you're misunderstanding why we had Brock Bowers as a sell. Because buying and selling Dynasty players is not always just buy players that we think are good, sell players we think are bad, buy good players that are playing good, and sell bad players that are playing bad.
That's
monkey brain.
That's the dinosaur age of Dynasty.
That's monkey brain Dynasty. Okay? Because here's the fact. Here's what we knew good and well. Because here's what people do. People will look at that take and they'll say, and when Brock Bowers goes and scores, at a very high level for tight ends, which we know he will, he's absolutely going to. It's Brock Bowers. Duh. But people are going to say, oh, these guys told you to sell. Look at them now. Oh, these guys suck. This is why they don't. And it's just a fact. The fact of the matter is you just don't understand. You just don't understand what we're actually trying to say. We're not saying sell Brock Bowers because he's not going to perform. We're not saying his value is going to drop a ton. We're not saying sell Brock Bowers because he's not going to produce as a Dynasty asset. We're not saying sell Brock Bowers because he's cooked or toast or whatever. People are asking, why would you trade Brock Bowers on a Dynasty team? He has elite production. He's been injured. Why? People approach that as if we were saying to sell Brock Bowers because he hadn't been performing, which it had nothing to do with that. Nothing. He's going to be a gold jacket tight end. He's better than Prime Kelsey. What about tight end premium leagues? Yeah, guys, the fact of the matter is none of those sayings or cool none of that wins you a Dynasty league. None of it does. It had nothing to do with the fact that Bowers was not producing. Nothing. It has nothing to do with the fact that Bowers is valued in the first and second round of Dynasty. He's going to continue to be there. We're not saying, hey, he sucks, he's a bust, he's going to lose all of his value, sell before he goes down. That's not what we said at all in the video. Okay? And so I wanted to put that out there because a lot of people are going to say, next year, these guys said to sell Bowers. Look how good he is now. Look, these guys are idiots. That was never the point.
There's a third dimension to Dynasty that I think is just not clearly understood across the board in the Dynasty community, because again, everyone understands that the value of players long term, like as a cornerstone asset, is what you factor in Dynasty that you don't in Redraft, right? You have production and you have value, right? It's essentially like a little two-dimensional board. You're going up, down, you're going side to side. When you're going on this scale of production, going up and down this scale of value. When we're saying moving off Brock Bowers and you're just thinking about his value and his production versus other people's value and other people's production when we're down tiering from Bowers or moving him for another position, there's a third dimension in Dynasty that I don't think is talked about enough, and that is the opportunity cost, positional opportunity cost of holding a player like Brock Bowers, which we try to make very clear. And I don't know if we've done a good enough job of it. We're going to try to continue to make it very clear, but you have to understand what you are sacrificing at other skill positions when you are holding a large chunk of your roster value at the tight end position exclusively, which is a onesie position where you really only want to be starting one every single week. And when you are deficient at wide receiver or running back because you are holding that value at tight end specifically, it can hurt you not only in the long run, but immediately as a contender. And that's kind of the idea there, right? It's not a we hate Brock Bowers or we think he's going to lose value or even increase value or maintain or whatever, and we think that the guy that's just as productive as Brock Bowers right now, like Jake Ferguson, is going to actually at some point be as valuable as Brock Bowers at some point in the future. You're just thinking about value and production correlations there that they actually don't really connect at all. What it is the opportunity cost. What is it costing you to down tier from Brock Bowers to Jake Ferguson right now as a contender when you can essentially double your production outlook when you get Jake Ferguson plus what you could have done a couple weeks ago, like Rashee Rice and Jake Ferguson?
Easily.
You're doubling your production outlook this season as a contender. Right. So that's the type of concept that we're trying to make very clear. And I hope it makes a little more sense with the way that we've kind of broken it down here.
And to build on that, a lot of people were saying, oh, these guys lost me at trading Bowers for Hawkinson, trading Bowers for Ferguson, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're not.
It's not about those two players in the way they compare.
We're not telling you to swap Bowers straight up for those guys. The whole point of that segment of the video was to say, sell Bowers for an elite wide receiver and find your tight end production for cheaper elsewhere. And the fact of the matter is that tight end especially, on a year-to-year basis, you can stream tight end, trade for a tight end in Dynasty that happens to be producing that year, that is scoring at 80% of the level of all the elite tight ends, and not take that much of a loss from an opportunity cost standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, again, I want to reiterate this. Brock Bowers is not a sell because he's not producing. He's not a sell because he's injured. He's not a sell because he's not good enough. And he's not a sell because he's not scoring enough in tight end premium leagues. Has nothing to do with that. Again, let's talk about this. When you're playing in a Superflex Start 10 league, okay? So let's say for the sake of this example, you have a quarterback and a super flex, right? You've got 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 2 flex. So a start 10 league. When you're doing the math there, you've got the 2 running back positions, the 3 wide receiver positions, and the 2 flex spots. 7 out of your 10 spots are made up by running backs and wide receivers in your league. And of course, you have the 1 tight end spot and the 2 quarterback spots. The reason mathematically that it makes sense to move off of an elite tight end like Brock Bowers is because when you're looking at the overall effect on your lineup, we're going to make a graphic for this so I can put it on the screen and it will visually demonstrate this for you. You can get replacement level production from somebody super cheap in Dynasty for Brock Bowers. And then what you can do when you trade a Brock Bowers for CeeDee Lamb, which by the way, that was an example we gave. Absolutely, you make that trade if you can trade Bowers for CeeDee Lamb in any Dynasty league. There are people saying, hey, don't make that trade. This is the worst advice. Make the trade. Trust me, make the trade. Buy CeeDee Lamb. There's no risk to buying CeeDee Lamb, you guys. None. 0. CeeDee Lamb is infinitely more likely to maintain his top 12 Dynasty status than Brock Bowers ever is and was because he's a wide receiver, because he's an elite wide receiver. It's not even close. But saying that, here's the illustration. When you trade Brock Bowers for example, let's say Brock Bowers is averaging 15 points a game, you trade him for Jake Ferguson, who's averaging 13 points per game, okay? So you take a -2 points per game loss in that tight end spot. But then what happens? If you're particularly weak at your flex spot, which again, if we're telling you trade your tight end for an elite wide receiver, that means your flex spots aren't good enough because there are teams where you hold guys like Brock Bowers, and those are elite value, well-rounded teams that have elite flex spots already. If you don't need to get better at your flex spot, which is where Dynasty leagues are won, mind you, you don't need to trade Brock Bowers. It's team dependent. Every team is different, and you don't want to sell low on them either. But on a team where we'd say to sell Brock Bowers, the flex spot's going to be weak. And so what's going to happen is a trickle-down effect when you get a high-end flex option. That's a high-end running back or a high-end wide receiver. Because what happens at that point? You take out the -1 or 2 points per game at tight end. Okay, you lost that. But then you go get CeeDee Lamb. And CeeDee Lamb is, you plug him in as your wide receiver 1, and he may be 1 point per game better than who you had there before, 2 points per game better than Rashee Rice or something like that. But what happens is every time you plug in an elite running back or wide receiver into your lineup, again, 7 of those positions are running backs or wide receivers. What it does is it bumps everybody down 1 spot. And what you see is that bottom guy who was averaging 7 points per game in your flex spot becomes somebody who's averaging 10. And that second to last spot was the guy who was averaging 10, and now the guy who was averaging 12 bumps down. And so you actually increase the points per game production of your lineup all the way down your lineup rather than at 1 spot. Again, mathematically, you are increasing your chances of scoring higher weeks by going and moving off of a onesie position and investing in higher upside flex options.
And not really losing any insulation
you lose
in the process.
You gain insulation.
I already know what we're going to see in the comments. Nobody's trading Brock Bowers for CeeDee Lamb. Okay, insert another insert any other elite wide receiver there. Put in Drake London. Put in Rome Odunze plus. These are deals that we see very, very often. It doesn't have to be just CeeDee Lamb, right? A value equivalent wide receiver in that.
Let's go through the trade finder right now. These are real trades. Brock Bowers from Malik Neighbors straight up. Okay. So
as a reload.
Brock Bowers for Emeka Ibuka straight up. These are within the last 2 days. Yeah. Okay. Looking for more. Brock Bowers I've seen a lot for Brian Thomas in a first. Okay. That's a decent trade. I like that a lot. Brock Bowers in a third for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Brock Bowers for Jackson Smith and Jigba straight up. I guarantee you can go get somebody like Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Brock Bowers for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Hunter Henry. This is happening often. And the point is not to say, hey, go do this still. We already did that. The point is so you can see why it's actually advantageous to not invest in your elite onesie positions and to go as cheap as you can until your flex spots are good enough. And again, the type of teams where you can hold an elite tight end, elite quarterbacks, etc. Elite value teams, well-rounded teams where your flex spots are already almost as good as they can get. There's no point in trading away an elite tight end like Bowers. There's no point. Bowers is not a sell on every team. It's all team dependent. But generally, a problem that we have in Dynasty, when we review hundreds of Dynasty teams a week, what we see is people's flex spots aren't good enough to win championships.
Elite value is rare. It's hard to achieve.
The majority of people need to sell them.
Exactly.
And I have teams where I need to sell them because my flex spots suck, guys. But if I trade them for an elite wide receiver, then it's going to bump down all my starting wide receivers into my flex spots instead. And again, if you're playing Dynasty with this mindset, I'm going to sell Brock Bowers because he's bad, or I'm going to buy Brock Bowers because he's good. This video is not for you. It's just not. This is supposed to teach you how we think about the game of Dynasty and also let you think about Dynasty with another added dimension, like Nathan said. That's 2D Dynasty. We're playing 3D Dynasty here.
Don't play Super Mario Bros.
Yeah, for real. Don't mistake it for sell Brock Bowers straight up for TJ Hawkinson or Jake Furk. Of course we're not saying that, you guys. But I can't hold your hand and tell you that, straight up the whole way through. So, with this, kind of wrapping it up, how to correctly move off of elite assets like this, because a lot of you need it. And again, I'll reiterate this. Dynasty is won at the flex position. You will win your Dynasty leagues by having the highest upside flex spots if you're in a 2 or 3 flex league. Hands down, it's not even close. I promise you. I've done it a lot. Don't move off of an elite asset unless it helps you win a championship. That's the rule. Bowers is not a sell unless it's helping you win a championship. But if it helps you win a championship, what else matters? If you're pivoting to somebody who's just as value insulated as Brock Bowers, you're not taking a value hit. You're not taking a production hit. What else matters besides winning a championship? Make moves that win you championships. From an elite asset, I mentioned this, either pivot or down tier 1 to 2 rounds max. Don't down tier from, if you're going to down tier, don't down tier from Bowers to anybody except for McBride or Warren. If you'd be pivot or don't, and then you at that point you can pivot or you can down tier or don't do anything. But a lot of people are saying, oh, you're down tiering from Bowers to Hawkinson. No, because with elite assets, you never down tier more than 1 to 2 rounds ever. That's a general rule for down tiering from elite assets. And do not ever sell low. Only accept overpays. Only accept overpays for elite guys. But the fact of the matter is, you should have gathered this based on the sentiment behind the Brock Bowers sell when we put him as a sell in our video. People will overpay. They will. People are bad at Dynasty. People don't know what they're doing. People don't pay attention, which frankly, it may not be.
We just talked about casual leagues in this video. How many people in your casual leagues where activity is not as high are actually going to bump Bowers down when they know that his long-term insulation is admittedly, it's very insulated. It's very solid.
So hopefully that makes sense. And I would encourage you, if you are a contending team that doesn't have very high upside flex spots. Maybe you're in the first year of your startup, or maybe you're in an established league and you just don't have high upside flex spots, but you're holding an elite tight end like a Bowers or McBride. You'll notice on our blueprints, we tell you to move off of those guys because, again, the impact it's going to have in your flex position ultimately outweighs holding an elite tight end for value's sake, because you can move to a value equivalent player and upgrade your flex spots from a production standpoint immediately. And so I would encourage you to explore offers and don't sell low like we mentioned. But the fact of the matter is, the reason that I had to write this trade strategy video is because people assume, because we're in season, and this happens in season a lot, that because somebody is a sell, it's because they're underperforming or because they're not scoring enough because they're bad. It had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with his production. It had nothing to do with his short-term outlook or his long-term outlook from a dynasty value perspective, realistically. It had nothing to do with that, and it had everything 100% to do with roster construction and strategy. That's it. And I promise you, moving off of what we said to do was move off of Bowers for an elite wide receiver or an elite tight end an elite running back or elite wide receiver. That move will not bite you in the butt. Okay? A lot of people use the example from last year. We came out and said, okay, we said we would shop Bijan Robinson. But the guys we said we would shop him for, guys like the Jackson Smith and Jigba plus, guys like Puka Nacua plus, guys like the value equivalent guys at the time in that range, those wide receivers as well, Chase, Jefferson, whoever. The reason we gave you Bijan as a shop for those specific guys is because we knew that even if Bijan popped off, which he did, and we said in the video, I know he's going to score 20 plus points per game at some point. We said, though, if you want to get more short-term production, you can get those wide receivers at no cost. And the worst case happened that Bijan started producing right away after that. But it didn't matter because we only told you to trade him for those specific wide receivers. Every trade suggestion has caveats, and every trade suggestion has a lot of layers to it, and is also more complex than just sell because they're bad, buy because they're good. And so keep that in mind as you're making dynasty trades and as you're interpreting dynasty buy and sell advice. It's not always as simple as, this player's bad, this player's good, I'm going to buy, yay. We're thinking strategically here. And I tried in this video to explain what our approach is, what our mindset is, and hopefully this helps and makes sense. If you'd like us to take a look at your team, we can suggest specific moves for your team. We do this all the time. It's second nature to us. And we implement all of our theory and strategy. We could write a book on dynasty theory at this point. And we implement it every time we do a team review. You can come join the community. We'd love to have you guys. We have a huge Discord full of great dynasty players in very active leagues. You can get in leagues with us as well. You can come and get a free team blueprint. You can get infinite blueprint, all that. If you'd like to take a look at your team, come join the community. You get a free one. I've got the link down in the comment. We'd love to have you. And this is what we talk about in our Discord every day. And so hopefully this helps you guys. And hopefully, I know this was more of a intense theory lecture and not, buy, sell these players, these are stashes, whatever. But this is why we're your favorite dynasty channel, right? because we talk like idiots into cameras about dynasty theory all the time. So we appreciate you guys and we love you so much. Hopefully this helps. Go make some trades that win your league. Thanks for watching. We'll see you here soon.